snowballs, Batman. It is snowing outside. Like, here where I live, in the greater Seattle area, it's not snowed at all. This whole winter, pretty much. We had, like, in certain areas we had a little bit of snow, but for the most part it hasn't snowed at all. And then this weekend happens, and we've had basically a foot of snow within 48 hours. And it just keeps going. Just non-stop, continuous snow. And I'm looking outside right now, and it's just falling so hard outside with no signs of stopping. So I don't know about you guys and where you live and if you have a lot of snow, but if you're like here where it's snowing like crazy, or you've already had it snow like crazy, please be safe and drive carefully. Don't go out if you don't need to, and hopefully you make it to your destination safely. That's all I've got to say, is just drive safe and be careful out there, because it definitely is not plowed the greatest around where I am living. At least on the side roads, they haven't plowed very well. So be safe. And let's go ahead and get started with today's class. Welcome back, Fantasy Fiction Fanatics. It's great to see you again, and I hope you're doing well. Today, before we get into our class, I would just like to remind everybody that we do have a giveaway going on for these two bookmarks. Let me show you a little bit closer where it's not so much glare. So if you're interested in winning either one of these, go ahead over with this link down below to my site where you can officially enter the giveaway. It's going on for one more week, so you do have a couple more days in order to get your name in and let me know which one you want to win. There is going to be 4 winners, 2 for this bookmark and 2 for this bookmark, and there are 6 ways to enter your name. So go ahead and head over to my blog where it will tell you exactly all of the 6 ways, and we'll let you enter right from there, all from the same place. So you won't have to be jumping around trying to get to the entry level. So yep, these are them. The backs are also colored. And it is custom art that I commissioned from my aunt Sonnet, who is a professional fantasy artist, and I will leave her site linked down below as well if you're interested in checking out buying any of her art, or in commissioning her yourself for any kind of fantasy art needs that you might have. So yep, go ahead and check over there for the giveaway. Hopefully you'll enter. You still have some time, and I would love, love, love to be able to give away these prizes to anybody who enters. So, all right. Let's go ahead and start with today's class, which is a character analysis on Jim Hopper from Stranger Things. I was really excited that I got this request from a subscriber, so thank you so much to the subscriber who asked me to do this character analysis. It is actually a little bit hard, not because he's not a good character or not because there's not a lot of depth to his character, because there is a lot of depth to his character, and he is a really top-notch character in my opinion. I really love him, and I really enjoy having him around and seeing what happens next with him. I think he's one of the better written characters that I have seen in a while. I really, really, really enjoy him. But even though I like him so much and there is so much depth to him, it's like really hard for me to classify him as I normally do with character analysis. Really breaking down the character into the little parts and really going over exactly who he is and what he brings to the story was a little bit trickier for me to really piece together what I felt like really fit him and really is actually how I feel he fits in with the different categories of different kinds of characters and goals and roles that are involved, the traditional ones at least. It was a lot harder for me to figure out which one actually fit him really perfectly. But I think I was able to finally break him down into a good analysis, and hopefully you will agree. Of course, anything that you don't agree with or anything that you think I missed, anything you want to have a discussion on, of course, I am always welcome to hear it. Go ahead and comment down below or on any social media, and I'd be happy to have a discussion with you and to hear your point of view on this character. So let's go ahead and just briefly, quick description of who he is. He is the chief of police at the Hawkins Police Department in the TV show of Stranger Things, and is most often called Hopper or Hop. It's unless I'm just misremembering, since it has been a little bit since I've seen all 3 seasons. I don't remember him being called Jim very much. Usually I always think of him as Hopper. So that's always how I have remembered having people call him as Hopper versus Jim. So let's go ahead and get on with his traits. So I've thought of several different ones, some of them a little bit contradicting and some of them not. Let's go ahead and jump in right with them. So to start off with, right away you can tell that he's a very brave person. He's very intelligent. He is also very dedicated to his job. And especially when you compare him to the other cops that he works with, the intelligence one is very high on the list. Not to say that the other cops are stupid, but they're just not quite on the same level as Hopper. So he is very caring, he's very compassionate, but he is also very blunt and pretty gruff as a person. You know, he's not like a cuddly, huggy kind of person. He's very kind of gruff, blunt. I don't want to say standoffish because I don't think that's a trait that he has, but it's definitely not a like hugs and cuddles kind of personality. But he's also very open-minded. He isn't, you know, this is the way reality is, or this is the way things have to be, and that's it. He's very open-minded, very able to take in differences to his reality than he thought he had, and very much able to take in others' opinions and other people's thoughts and process them instead of just completely rejecting them. So he does keep an open mind and is a very open-minded person. He's also a very strong leader, and he's very realistic. So even though he is open-minded, he also does keep a firm grip on reality. Not necessarily saying that reality can't change what it means, but just being realistic in what is possible and what is not possible for, you know, different people that he's interacting with and in his group is one of his, you know, strong points, is that he is very much saying, like, you know, whether this is going to work or it's not going to work, he's very much realistic about that kind of thing, if that makes sense. So those were all the traits that I thought of that I felt like really described him, really was an overall look at who he is and how he interacts with people. So let's go ahead and move on to his goals. He has, in my opinion, 2 prominent goals, and they do, you know, fit together. They do interact with each other, and they're kind of side by side. And I feel like those are his main goals throughout all 3 seasons. Of course, they are fighting different types of enemies, the same kind of enemy, but different ones, like how they work and how the best way to defeat them is. But on the basis, his goal is to keep his town safe. Easier said than done in his case. And he used to work, I believe it was in New York, and he moved to Hawkins and was happy with not having to deal with all the stuff that happens in New York. And then of course he ends up getting the town that is infested with creatures from the underside. And so yeah, so it didn't really work out for him to get less cases and have, you know, less responsibility to protect his town and to protect the people that are under his jurisdiction. So really didn't pan out for him well, but that's okay. At least he is up to the challenge. But yeah, in the long scheme of things, one of his main goals is to keep his town and the people who live in it safe. And that coincides with the fact that he has a goal of always protecting the people he sees as his charge. So in general, the town is supposed to be safe, but then of course the people come into the town at the time that things are happening. He sees them as his charge, even if they don't full-time live there or anything else, or if they've just moved there or whatever else. He will protect anybody who's in his vicinity and anybody that he is related to, anybody who he has strong connections to, and anybody who he doesn't have a strong connection to but just lives in his area. So he wants to keep his town safe and all of the people who live in it or are currently in it. So those two goals kind of seem like one goal. I know it's kind of very similar, but I just meant like he's trying to protect the town and the place that they live as a whole, and then he specifically is trying to protect specific people that are involved in the situation happening. So yes, he wants to protect everybody as a whole. It doesn't matter who it's from, what it's from. It's not necessarily related to the monsters or anything like that. He's just going to protect them from anything at any time. And then he truly wants to protect the individual people, each individual person, to the best of his ability based on each scenario or each situation that they are in. So especially this applies to the group of friends and kids that are actually involved with the mega danger that's always happening in Hawkins, it seems, throughout each of the seasons. So he specifically is very protective of the kids that are involved because they are in the most danger versus the other town who are oblivious to the fact that supernatural things are happening around them. So it's very important to him to be that guardian angel, to be that protector, even if he doesn't see himself as being a guardian angel or see himself as anything special. He's just, doing his job, but he truly is like a one-track mind on protecting people and figuring out how to keep everybody safe on a constant level, how to defeat them and then keep them safe after, the danger is done, and to prevent any new kind of danger coming in if at all possible. Now let's go ahead and talk about his role in the story. I feel like there are two main roles that he brings to the story. The first one is kind of an obvious one. He is a leader. So he 100% is a leader in the fact that he is the chief of police, which is a leadership role. So in the obvious sense, yes, he is a leader in some sense in this story. So everything is going south though, and obviously the whole police force is not involved in this, nor does he really want them involved because they would not be able to handle it. And instead there's a bunch of kids that seem to be more apt at handling the supernatural and handling fighting for their lives than the police force. But even though he's not in that capacity being a assigned leader per se, but when he is with the kids and he is in the middle of danger, he steps in and takes that leadership role and is gonna be like, this is what we're gonna be doing. We need to formulate a plan, and he's right up there figuring out how the best way to handle the situation is and how the best way it is to be able to protect everybody involved. Even if that does include trying to cut out the kids and doing everything himself if at all possible, and them not being so happy about it. But either way, he does take that leadership role. He does step in and be like, I'm going to be the person to try and set everything up, try and look at all the possible scenarios, try and be that leader that's going to give the best suggestions possible and to be able to make executive decisions for the safety of everybody involved. Of course, he's not always so accepted as the leader because he makes choices that others do not approve of, and sometimes the underlings do go against his wishes and against what he's telling them they should be doing. But that's a whole nother story. But he does step up and is like, hey, this is the way things are going to get done. This is the way things are happening at the current time. This is what our plan should be, yada, yada, yada. Taking that leadership role and trying to point people in the correct direction of how the best way to handle the situation is. And second is he's kind of a father figure. And in many ways, especially by season 3, he actually is a father figure in the fact that he does adopt 11. But he's not just a father figure in the fact that he has taken over custody of 11 and is trying to raise her, and both in season 2 and season 3, he's looking out for her, protecting her, being that guardian, that father figure. But also over all the kids that are involved in all this battling and all of the supernatural events, he is still a father figure in the kind of in a sense to all of them, because he is one of the only adults in this whole scenario that really cares about what's happening with the kids and actually being involved in what's happening with the kids. He is the only one actually looking out for their well-being, trying to keep them safe, trying to have a relationship with them, because they are one of the few people who know about everything that's going on. He's protective of them, and he's trying his best to guide them and make sure that they're going to be okay. I mean, take Mike's parents, for example, who are just oblivious to anything and everything that's happening in their kids' lives. They don't know that their kids are in danger. They don't know what their kids are doing, where they're at, nothing. And they're just kind of like, whatever about it. I mean, they're just not really involved at all in their kid's life, except for the very occasional cameo that they have when Mike's actually at his house. And that's the way it is for most of the kids' parents. They're not very involved in knowing what's happening with their kids or knowing what's happening in general. But Hopper comes in and is protective of them, wants to make sure that they're going in the right direction. So not just for 11, but for all the kids, he is the adult that's going to be in the room when things go to crap. And he's going to try and give them the best advice and to try and protect them and to try and do what is right for them. So he's very much a father figure, yes, to 11, most typical sense of being a father figure to 11, but to all the kids in general. He really truly cares about them. He really truly wants to set them in the right direction. And so he's really good to all of them, and he truly cares about all of them and their well-being. And so I feel like father figure for the whole group of kids in general, and especially 11, as he does adopt her and such, really fits for him and the role that he has in the story. So he is a leader and he is a father figure in this story. Now, what does he actually bring to the story? What is it that he provides that not necessarily all the other characters provide? Well, first of all, he provides the fact that he is smart and involved in the situation that's happening. So he is an experienced person, and I would say that Joyce is often his pair in this. So I would say that even though we're not analyzing her, that she is the match to him in this aspect. Is that he is involved in the conflicts, he is involved in what's going on, and he is smart and experienced and an actual adult and providing all of that experience and smarts and being a cop and having all of that under his belt and being able to apply that to the situation that they're in, versus the kids who are kind of just trying to survive and doing what they can do. So he's providing an adult experience, smart role to the problems at hand, and actually being able to provide knowledge that the kids would not have, an experience that the kids would not have to the situation, to help the situation be solved better, if that makes sense. I really hope that what I'm saying makes sense to you. It makes sense in my brain, and I just feel like it's not coming out of my mouth as well as I would like. So just him being involved in this and him having more experience, more reliability on how to handle stressful situations and how to handle certain situations, even if the supernatural is not common, something that he is used to dealing with. He is used to dealing with high stress situations, used to dealing with, possibly murderers and bad people from when he's a cop in New York. For, having dealt with, experiencing life experiences in general, that he gives experience to these situations. Possibly fighting for your life is something that he might have done in his past as being a cop and such. We don't know tons about what he did in New York to say exactly what he is fully bringing as experience-wise to the situation, but we do know that he definitely has a lot more experience with stuff than the kids do. And obviously by season 3, they've had some more practice and a little bit more experience since they have been fighting for their lives for 3 seasons. But from the start especially, he's bringing a bit more of a mature, realistic viewpoint and kind of a better planning and such like that because of his experience to the group and to the situation in general. Second, he brings realistic, reality-grasped viewpoints to the story and to the other characters. So, again, this kind of relates to the fact that he is smart and he has experience. But as I said earlier with his traits, is that he is a very realistic person. He's not a sugarcoater. He does not think that, things that are very dangerous will necessarily work or not work. He is very realistic in the fact of what are him and everybody else who's involved capable of. What will happen if they do enter the situation in different ways. He's very realistic about it, and he is upfront and being like, if you do this, everyone will die. If you do this, you're gonna die. If we all are gonna be doing this, I can't protect you. That kind of stuff. Like even with Elle, putting her in the cabin, locking her up, saying, don't be stupid, we're not gonna play it this way, we're gonna keep you safe. And even though it was a little bit overboard for her, he was still being realistic by saying, hey, if you do this, this is gonna be the highest risk of you getting caught and you getting captured again and you being used. And this is why we're doing this. And I understand that you don't like what's happening, but this is the reality of what could happen if you are like this, or if you're going to choose to do this. And same thing with the rest of the kids, is that they're like, oh, well, we're going to go fight this monster. And he's like, you're going to end up dead. Like, let's be smart and realistic about our expectations and what is actually physically possible for us. Even though there is supernatural elements happening, that does not mean it's a fix-all for everything. And so, sorry, the dogs are barking if you can hear that. So, he's very much we're not going to sugarcoat anything. We're not going to expect flowers and rainbows. We're going to be realistic, especially when people's lives are on the line. So he does bring a whole lot of realism and realistic thinking to the group, when everybody else would be like, yeah, like we're going to go kill the monsters like in D&D, even though reality is not D&D. So I think he really gives a firm grasp and keeps everybody's feet on the ground throughout the story. Now, last but not least, he also brings the fact that he is a protector to the story as well. So he provides somebody who's going to look out for these kids and somebody who cares whether they live or they die, and is going to do what he can to protect them and to protect everybody else, obviously, because it would eventually affect everybody else if these situations were left to just run rampant. But he's somebody who cares about everybody, even though he is gruff and a little bit seeming like he isn't necessarily compassionate. He truly is so compassionate and so caring, and he will jump into any situation if it's gonna be to protect somebody. It doesn't matter how dangerous it is. He is gonna be in the front line protecting everybody else, and if he could, he would leave everybody else uninvolved. Of course, that doesn't work out so well for him. It doesn't work out so well for any of them, because it's kind of necessary that everybody be involved in order to get things done, and it's not a one-man job. But if he could, he would be at the front line doing it all himself and protecting everybody and keeping everybody a safe distance back, so that way they are not in any trouble to get hurt. Obviously, he isn't always able to protect everybody, and there are some deaths and some people getting hurt, and problems and complications, but if he could, he would keep everybody protected, and he does his best to provide that protection to the highest ability that he can for as long as he possibly can. So, and he takes the deaths of the people who he couldn't protect very seriously and very hard. So he's definitely a protector and somebody who's going to be there for everybody involved, trying to do his best to provide what he can and keep everybody as safe as possible. Okay, let's go ahead and tackle his relationships now. So I actually have several relationships listed with things on them that I think are important relationships to Hopper and his character in this show. So usually, I have one or two that are like really important. This time I've got like 4, I believe, that I think I want to touch on and that are kind of important and develop throughout the story as we are continuing to see them. And we will see, since the story isn't done, it's only been seasons 1 through 3, and season 4 is coming out hopefully very soon. We will continue to see how those relationships evolve and evolve him. So they evolve as the relationship, and how those relationships then affect him and have him grow and change. And the first one is Joyce Byers. So apparently him and her have been friends for a really long time. They went to school together and they've known each other a super long time and are super good friends. And so they have, even though they didn't have any kind of serious relationship until closer to this set of seasons, they were not necessarily super close anymore. They did have a past. They do have a previous set of events that have happened where they know each other and they've grown close. And even if they weren't as close at the beginning of season 1, of course, over the action of everything happening, they have grown closer again. And can look back on when they were young, and we've had moments where they discuss that. Continually throughout these seasons, they get closer and closer. Obviously, when you're dealing with the supernatural that only a few people know about, you become closer in relationship to those people that you are involved in these situations. You get to know them better. You get to become, people who share secrets together and such like that. And that has brought them closer in general together. It does seem like by the end of season 3 that there was possibly a romance developing and going somewhere. Obviously, where things have been left at the end of season 3, with her thinking that he has died, and even we just know that he isn't because we have seen trailers, or at least hopefully you guys have seen trailers. It's the only thing they really show in the trailer of what they have out so far, is that he is not dead. So we're going to see if that romance does develop in season 4, but at this point she thinks he's dead and gone, and she has moved. So we're going to see how that affects the relationship. Obviously something's going to bring them back, or the fact that we would lose, several main characters from the plot and the story. So we're going to see what happens there, and see if that romance continues to build. But obviously, either way, he is very important to her and she's very important to him, and has been progressing into being more important and more of a romantic situation throughout the seasons. And then that together they are the adults that actually pay attention to the kids involved in these dangerous situations. So they do have that semblance in the fact that they're kind of a pair. They're always involved in whatever supernatural things are happening. They take each other very seriously. They understand where the other person is coming from and the experiences that they've had together, since they have both been in the situations together from season 1 all the way now to season 3. They've weathered it all together. And so they have a tight bond anyway, just from being in these high-stress situations and actually having to protect all of these kids together, especially Joyce's son, Will, because he is the person who was most affected and the person who really needed saving in season 1. Which brings us to the next relationship, which is Will Byers. And of course, when you save a kid from, or help at least save a kid from the underside, it's gonna make it so that you have a different connection with that kid than all the other kids. Even though, yes, they were all working to save Will, and yes, they were all involved in these horrible things, and yes, it is all a deeper connection than he has to anybody else in Hawkins. He does physically save Will and has done a lot to save Will and to try and keep Will saved, I guess you could say, in the fact that, you know, even though he comes out and joins reality again and is saved, he also is still connected in many ways. And season 2 is why he has so many problems, is that he's still connected to everything else that's happening. So Hopper is trying to help him. Not only has he saved him, but he's close proximity in helping him try and remain well and to make sure that he is not suffering any side effects. You know, he goes to the doctor's visits and he takes what Will says very, very seriously, just like Joyce does, even more so than anybody else. You know, he and her are right there checking on Will, making sure he's okay, really being watchful of him. So him and Will, though I don't really think that Will per se has a super high connection to Hopper, the way Hopper has a connection to him. I'm not, it's not quite, you know, like we're like, oh my gosh, you saved me, now I'm gonna be like around you all the time. It's not like that. But it's definitely on Hopper's side. He feels the responsibility of watching over Will, making sure that there is nothing else wrong with him. And that is a lot about the whole protector and guardian aspects that he feels that he has for everybody, and that's gonna be including Will, that once he saved him, he's like, okay, I need to make sure that I follow through on this and make sure that this kid is gonna be okay after all the trauma that he has experienced. Now let's go ahead and talk about his relationship with 11, who is very important to him. She doesn't start out that way, and she isn't blood related to him, but she does become his daughter, especially after he officially adopts her. But season 2 and season 3 are both seasons where he has taken over that father figure role and is trying to protect her and to look out for her and raise her, especially since she didn't have a normal childhood and doesn't always know everything about the basic, I don't want to say like basic reality necessarily, but that's kind of what I'm trying to get at, is in the rules of culture and society that people normally learn as they grow up. She did not have those social interactions and the same kind of upbringing as everybody else, so he is also trying to teach her how to interact with people and how to have those social interactions. So their relationship does develop into a family relationship, and she is very, very important to him, obviously, and especially protective of her, because in many ways, I believe, because he did have a daughter before who ended up dying from cancer. So I think in many ways he wants to try and make up for not being able to protect his last daughter by protecting 11 and doing his best to raise her as best as he can. He's not used to having to raise her. He's not used to having to raise anybody, especially by himself. So it does have some ups and downs for him and for her both alike, just as any family relationship does. But he's definitely very overprotective of her, and this does cause a lot of strife between them, especially in season 2. He's not used to what he should be doing, how protective he should be versus not being, and he's trying to err on the side of caution, and she is fed up with it and ends up going a little rogue and such. But so they're really butting heads at times, and of course when your kid is becoming 18, sometimes that happens anyway, really just clashing until they work it out and are able to figure out their balance that they're that they not necessarily supposed to have, but that they need to have in order to have a good relationship and to be able to protect one another and be that family that they want to be. So he really truly grows to love her and to think that she is somebody totally special, and that's why he does adopt her and very much becomes the overprotective father. And it's really, really great to see that he has this new relationship in his life, especially since, you know, this whole time he hasn't had a romance until, you know, the end of where Joyce and him in season 3 are kind of doing this little dance. But he doesn't have, you know, a lot of happy past that we've learned about. He's had a hard life with, you know, his ex-wife and his last daughter, and that unfortunately didn't make it. And, you know, with all the supernatural stuff that's happening and him just trying to keep his head above water with all the stuff that life has already thrown at him, and then he decides to try again and have a relationship with 11, who doesn't have anybody to take care of her and to help her. So he steps in there and is going to try his best, and he really truly grows to love her and to want what's best for her. And it's very, very sweet, and it's very wonderful that she ends up getting to have a family that she didn't have before, and he gets to have the family that he didn't get to have before as well. And he is definitely growing into his dad role by season 3 when she is dating Mike, and the whole thing about the doors open rule, and he's very protective of her against Mike, even though Mike and him have a relationship in the fact that they fight all these horrific supernatural monsters together, even though he's just a kid and such. It's a very interesting combination, a really interesting dynamic of everybody's relationship to everybody. So yes, 11 is super, super, super important to him, and super important for her to have him as well. And the last relationship that I want to talk about is the gang as a whole. So there's a lot of kids that end up being involved, teens and kids, I should say, and young adults that are invested in the supernatural conflict especially by season 3. And of course, he has a relationship with them as a whole. They obviously are a group of friends that have been friends for a long time, and he's familiar with them at the beginning, kind of as a friendship thing. I mean, and through all the seasons, you know, they're the main group of friends, and they're always the ones that are involved. And we just add some new people in season 2 and such. And season 3, they continue to grow. But he kind of has a relationship with the group of kids and young adults as a whole, as they are battling supernatural creatures together. I mean, you can't really not be affected or get some kind of relationship going when you fight battles together and have death-defying experiences. So the thing that I think is really, really cool is that even though they are kids and teens and people who would be considered not mature enough, not smart enough, not experienced enough to really take seriously in most situations, Hopper takes them seriously all the time. That does not mean that he doesn't get frustrated with them and think that they really need, you know, to have their head knocked around a little bit occasionally. I mean, it's not without strife. But he does take them seriously. He doesn't just laugh at them. He doesn't... obviously, he's experienced things as well. But even at the beginning, when everything is going wrong at the beginning, he takes them seriously. And even when they're doing stuff and they're saying like, oh, this is the case, and we figured out this and this, he takes them seriously at all times. Even from season 1. Even when the time when he could have been not seeing anything, not knowing anything, it all being still a mystery and unbelievable, he takes them seriously anyway. And I really admire him for that, for actually, even though them being kids and them being not experienced, and a lot of people would not take kids seriously in this kind of situation where they're making unbelievable claims, he does take them seriously and he does listen to their side of the story. Doesn't mean he always listens to them or takes their advice or agrees with them, but he does at least listen and hear what they have to say instead of just chucking them out and being like, no, you don't have no voice here. But he's still very protective and very strict with them. Like I said earlier, with his realistic point of view and everything like that, he really can be strict and being like, no, you're not going to do this. No, I forbid this. No, you don't have the ability to deal with this. Let me protect you kind of relationship. And that does get some strife. That does not always work out in his favor, because sometimes they just ignore him or they listen selectively. But he really cares about them and wants them to be safe and is strict with them for a reason. So he listens to them and then he makes his judgment call anyway. Sometimes it is in their favor though. Sometimes he listens and he thinks that they actually came up with something that is valuable and will implement that. So it's not always just him knocking them down either. So yes, sometimes it's a very frustrating relationship with each of these kids. Sometimes he really doesn't have the patience for it. Especially like in season 3 when Dustin is singing with Susie and he just lays his head against the wall like, I can't believe this is my life and this is happening right now. Like, what is happening? But he does truly care about them, does take them seriously, and does have a mature relationship with all of them from these experiences that they've had. And does rely on them in certain situations. In situations that he feels that they can provide help that he is willing to let them give, that isn't too dangerous or isn't something he can actually say no on because he really needs their help, he does rely on them and he does know that they're going to be able to hold up their end of the bargain. So it's a very mature relationship between him and the kids that are all involved with the supernatural. Okay, I think that is everything that I wanted to say on all that. Let me know if anything, comments, questions, concerns, anything I've missed, anything you think I got wrong, anything you want to add, whatever it may be. I'd love to have a conversation with you about who you think Jim Hopper is and your thoughts on his characterization, on his traits, on his relationships, anything at all, anything. I would love to hear about it and have a discussion with you. And so please let me know down below any thoughts, feelings that you have. Really quick, let's go ahead and cover our trivia from last week. I had several people submit answers, so thank you so much. Thank you for participating. I always have a fun time seeing your answers, seeing who got it right, people who got it wrong. Last week's questions answer was Arya Stark. We had several people who thought it was Bran, who is temporarily blind in the Game of Thrones, but it is Arya, not Bran. Sorry to those of you who answered with Bran and got it wrong. The correct participants are Dan, Brendan, Christian, and an anonymous no-name answer. So thank you for participating. Again, everybody who answered questions, even if you didn't get it right, I truly appreciate you giving a shot at it. And I would love to hear, for those of you who thought it was Bran, why you thought it was Bran, because I did have that from several different people who answered who thought it was him. So I'd really love to know where you thought that he was temporarily blind. Now, if you would like to reach me, and commenting down below is not the best place for you, then go ahead and you can contact me on Facebook, which is /fantasyfiction1. You can also contact me at Twitter, which is /fantasyfiction1. You can contact me through email, which is going to be down below if you'd like to find it. You can contact me on the Discord, which the link, if you'd like to join our Discord and our community and chat with other fantasy fiction fanatics about all kinds of things, you can do that. The link is down below for you to be able to join. You can also head over to fantasyfictionfanatics.net, which has a link to the Discord there as well. It also has my blog and all of my extra content over there. If you'd like more content from me, lots of different kind of content than I do have on there, such as recommendations for books, my top 5 lists. I've got book reviews. I've got Fanatic deliberations, where I just talk about different fantasy things or book things and tell you my opinions on them or what I think about them. Writing stuff over there, a whole bunch of stuff. So hopefully if you'd like some more content, you can go over there and see what's on there and anything that might interest you. The trivia question is also over there as well. So if you do want to participate in this week's question, you can hop over there and on any page. If you're on desktop, it'll be on the right hand side. You might have to scroll down just a little bit to see it, but it will be on that right hand side. If you are on mobile, you'll probably have to scroll most of the way down in order to find it, and it will be there down towards the bottom of the page. Yes, also for the giveaway, don't forget, I mentioned it at the beginning, one last little shout out for people who want to win these custom art bookmarks. They are being given away, and that is also going to be over on my website. I have a link down below if you want to get right to it. Otherwise, you can go over to the website, and there is going to be on the main page, the Dragon Hordes page, it will say welcome to the giveaway, and you can go ahead and click there and be able to enter yourself in the giveaway. There are 6 chances, like I said, to enter your name, so lots of different ways that could be easiest for you, or if you do all 6 and you have 6 entries in and have a good chance of winning one of these. And I would love, love, love if you would participate and hopefully win a great prize. So I think that's about it for this week. I truly appreciate you guys staying to the end and watching this far. Anything from me, you go ahead and just let me know in any of the places I've mentioned earlier, and I'd be happy to have a conversation with you. I guess I will see you guys next time. Bye!